Hey everyone, hope you guys are having a good day. So I'm out of ideas for this channel, and what I'm going to do is basically just implement a feature on this project that I worked on. I have a tutorial video, a longer form tutorial video you should check out. It'll be in the description below, where I basically build out this product that's hooked in the Stripe. We have subscriptions. But the idea is, as a content creator, I want to go and I want to create a test scenario where I have different thumbnails and people can come through and vote on their favorite thumbnail. So me as a content creator, I can kind of understand which thumbnails look better and just improve my ability to design, because obviously I'm not that good at designing. Now the feature I want to add in this video is I want to be able to follow other people, so that when the people you follow were to post a new thumbnail, you'll get some type of notification. Hopefully it doesn't take too long to build, but knock on wood, everything always takes long in coding. So if I were to go to this person's profile, you can see their thumbnail here. You can see their thumbnails that they've created, their little avatar, their name. I want to add a follow button here. So let's go to this page profile, and that's an ID slug. So let's just go to that. We'll do profile and open up that page. And what I want to do is find out where I do the avatar. So let's just do a Command F, go to the avatar. We got the name here. Let's just add in a button. Okay, so let's just do a button. And inside this button, I'm going to go ahead and put a follow button. Make sure that shows up. Awesome. And so if I am not currently following this user, I need to create a record in a table probably to keep track of that follow. And then if I have already followed the user, I want to be able to unfollow the user. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my convex schema. And again, if you don't know much about convex, the same thing applies for if you use like Prisma or Planet Scale or any SQL database. We're going to create a new table called follows, I guess, like this. And we need to map user A to user B, right? So I'll say source user ID, and that's going to be mapped to users. And then we'll say target user ID. But I think of a better name to name this? Probably. But this is why you can refactor code once you think of a better name. And we are going to basically add an index here so we can quickly find all of the followers that are attached to my account. I'm actually going to call this user ID. I think that'll be a better naming convention. And so here I'll say index, I'll say by user ID. And then we want to basically attach an index right here. And that allows us to do a query and get all of the entries based on a user ID if I need to figure out who I'm following. And that should be enough. We can come back and refactor this if we have to add different stuff. But now what we can do is if you click on this button, we want to basically follow somebody. So we're going to have to figure out how to implement a follow mutation. In Convex, you can basically create mutations, which allows you to modify your data. So let's go, and I'm going to create a new file called follows.ts. And we'll say, we'll look at another mutation in here. I'm sure there's some mutations. Just grab this one. I'm going to paste it here, and I'll say follow. And I'm going to import this auth mutation. Basically, this is a custom mutation that wraps a mutation that's provided by Convex that verifies that you're logged in. If you are verified, you'll get access to the user inside your context. It's pretty cool. But we want to basically take in the target user ID, and we're going to map that to that users table. So I'll say users, and that should be good enough, right? And all we want to do is we want to basically create a follows record. We want to map those two things together, right? So I'll just go ahead and say target user ID is the target user ID. And then we'll say user ID is equal to context user dot user ID. Make sure we import some stuff here. I do think, am I doing the wrong thing? I think we have user underscore ID is what we should be using. Okay, so if you call this follow method, it'll insert a record into the table to track that, hey, you're following this person. But there's an issue with this. If you keep on clicking that follow button, it's just going to keep on inserting records because we don't have a way to basically add unique columns in Convex. So I'm going to say const target user is equal to await context DB query. And we want to get the users table. We want to do a with index. And we want to say get by user ID. We'll build a query builder here. So q dot equals user ID, and we'll say context user underscore ID. this, and that'll give us back all the users that we follow. To make this a little bit more efficient, we could probably also add another index. So this is for getting all the users we follow, but if you want to also say by user ID, target user ID, you can have a composite index like this, right? And then I think we could just query by doing another equals here. And I'll just say, find us. Sorry, let me do this one. By user ID, target user ID. Over here, did I name that right? Target user ID, yeah. All right, so let's see, can we actually query this? Now, sometimes you gotta go and make sure that your stuff is compiling. I'm actually just gonna do this. Oh, the issue is I'm doing query users. I need to say query follows. So we wanna get, there we go. Now we're cooking. So let's just go ahead and find my followers like this. And we can just go ahead and say context user ID. But then we also want to get the target. So I can say target user ID is equal to args target user ID. And then I can say give me the first one. And then I should get back, I add a parenthesis there. Perfect. So hovering over this will tell us if we've already followed this person. So if we already have followed this person, we could probably just throw a new convex error and say, hey, you already follow this person. You already follow this user ID. Just so you don't try to create the same records over and over and over again. Okay. So now over here, how do you call that mutation? Well, I'm going to go ahead and say const follow is equal to use mutation. All right, so now we should do follows. We can call the follow method. Maybe I should call this follow user. Maybe that'll make it a little bit cleaner. So I'll rename that. And now we have a follow user mutation that we can call from down here. So let's just go ahead and call it. Okay. What does it take in? Well, it looks like it takes in a target user ID. How do we know what the target user ID is? Well, we have the profile. We don't have the name on this. So we need to actually go back to this profile here. And we have the user ID here actually. So we can actually just pass that. So now when we click the button, it's going to tell our browser to invoke a convex mutation. That should insert a record. And then we should be able to query and get that follow record back. So now we got to go back and I'm going to add one over here. I'm going to add export const get follow. And we're going to call this an auth query. Like this. Args again will be similar to this. Just copy all this stuff over. Paste it in. Good enough. But the difference is we're going to do that same query, but we're just going to return it. So that'll kind of make sure to give us back the record if it exists. And now we can call that from our front end over here. I'll just say like const follow. I'll say use query. I'll say follows follow. Oh, we can call it get follow, and then we want to pass in the target user ID, which is going to be equal to params.userid. Okay. So this is going to do a query to the backend and check, hey, do we already follow this person? And if it exists, then we can show an unfollow button. Otherwise, we could show a follow button. So I'm going to go ahead and just pretend like we have an unfollow button here. And I'll just call this unfollow, save it. We'll probably make a new method in a second, but we're going to comment out that. So if we set this up correctly, hopefully we did. If I click this button, that should insert a record into our follows table. If I click it, but we are getting a little issue. So we don't want to run this query because it is an authenticated query. So we're going to skip it in particular cases, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that we're logged in, which I do believe I do in another file. Let me check for the word skip. Go over here. We're going to pull that in. Check if we're authenticated, and then if we are not authenticated, we're going to skip passing some arguments. This is kind of how you do it in Convex to like dynamically make a request or not. Okay, so now the page should not crash, hopefully. Let's see. Must be logged in, get user or throw on what endpoint is it trying to call? So if we are not authenticated, we want to render out skip. Otherwise, we want to show and do the query. And this would have worked perfectly fine if I put this on the right place. I put it on the wrong thing. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to add it to this one. And I think that's our issue. There we go. So let's try it again. I'm going to click that follow button. And we are following that user now. And to verify that, let's go to data. Let's go to follows. And it's there. Cool. So now we got to do the inverse. How do you unfollow somebody? Well, you'd probably just delete this record from the table. And to achieve that, it's going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste this whole mutation. I'm going to call it unfollow user. And the difference is we want to just basically delete that target user underscore ID. That's it. So we'll still do that same query if it doesn't exist. This one we don't need to check though. I'm going to say if it doesn't exist, then we probably have already unfollowed them and we can't do this logic. You already unfollowed this user. Clean up some of this messaging. Okay, so now going back to the UI, I can just go ahead and bring in an unfollow user, and we can call it on that other button that we were about to add in, like this. And now I should be able to go back and forth between following and unfollowing, right? So if I click it, it adds the record. If I click it again, the record gets removed. Okay, we should probably make this a variant so that it's kind of, I don't know, apparent that it's destructive. So unfollow like that. So now at this point, what we could do is I could add another page for basically showing or listing out all the people that you follow. So let's go to the header real quick and let's find up here, instead of account, we'll add another one called peers, maybe, I don't know. And I'm going to go and create a new page. In the page, we could probably copy, let's just make a new one. We'll start fresh. I'll say peers, and then that one could have a page in it like that. And then we're going to look at the profile real quick. Is there anything in here that we could just copy? I think so. So I'm going to copy all this code, and then we don't want to have the unfollow, follow button stuff showing up. We really just want an avatar and a name for right now. And that's probably good enough. All this other stuff can go away. We don't have a params. We don't need to know if we're authenticated. Well, we'll keep this just in case. Then we have all this stuff. What is all this stuff? User thumbnails. We don't need that. Delete that. We got a bunch of awesome stuff we can delete now. All right, and this is going to be called the peers page. And so the idea is when this page loads, we want to get all the followers from that table. So how do you do that? Well, let's go back and let's add a query. So I'll do this. I'll copy auth query. And we want to basically make sure that you're logged in. And if you are, we want to get all the people you follow. And we're just going to go ahead and not do both of those things. Actually, I do need to add that back. Okay, instead of saying first, we'll say collect. That'll just get everything from the database. And I'll say get followers. Actually, I'll call it get peers. We'll be consistent. Get peers. And then we can say const peers is equal to use query API follows get peers. And then, yeah, I think we could probably do that whole skip thing again. So if we're not authenticated, then we will say skip. Otherwise, we'll say undefined. And so this is what we need to render out just multiple times. So I'm going to go ahead and just say do a peers map. And we want to just loop over this a couple of times. And we're going to just go ahead and display. What are we going to display? We're going to display both of this. So the avatar and that. Probably display the user ID of who you're following. And then instead of profile here, we'll just say peer. And then we'll say peer. These should be defined. Why is that not? Okay, yeah, so the issue is that we actually need to do like a join, right? Right now we're just grabbing data from the follows table, but we actually want to join and get information from every single user that we are following. So I'm going to say const peers is equal to this. And I'm going to say return promise.all. I'm going to wait on this. Well, I guess technically we don't need to wait on it, but we're going to go ahead and just say peers of map here. And then we're going to call, we're say await context, db, get. We want to get all of the peers dot ID here. I think that should be good. So that'll look up and get all the information for all the people that you follow, but that's going to give us back some sensitive information like email and stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this, and I'll return the things that we actually want. So like, for example, user has a profile image. So we should probably get the profile image here. Probably get the name. So I'll go ahead and change that. What else is on here? Email is admin name, profile image, user ID. I think we should probably just give back the ID. So I could say like user underscore ID. All right. If I did this right, hopefully I did. We should be able to get the peers now, and that should all be defined, right? So that should be good. That should be good. Going back to our page, if I go to my peers, we should see at least one entry of who we're following. At least I would hope it would work that way, but it's not working for some reason. Let's go back and let's go to the follows page, and let's print out what we get here. So I'll say print out peers, and we're going to go to this, go to our logs, and we're going to go ahead and just refresh this real quick. All right, so we're getting back nothing. So I might not even be following that person. Maybe that's our issue. Let's go back, go follow this web dev Cody person, go back to peers, and then he shows up. Okay, so I wasn't even following him. But for some reason it's showing my other profile picture. That's kind of weird. Why is it showing that? So I think I'm probably joining incorrectly. I think what I want to do is I want to get the target user ID here, and then that should hopefully display the web dev Cody image. Awesome. So now we could just style this a little bit, make it look nice. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a little bit of class name, flex call, gap of 2. Gap of 4, let's do gap of 4. That'll probably put a little spacing there. And then also, every page should probably have an H1. So let's just add an H1. And also, what's going on here? This is a grid calls 3, and then we have a grid call gap 2. I don't think we need that. I'm going to make this a grid call 4. I'm going to make this whole thing a container. Oh, I think it already is a container, so we don't need to do that. So I'll just put that. I'll say H1, and we'll say class name. We'll say text 2XL. Hopefully that's good. And I'll say your peers. Maybe peers is a bad name for it. But is this in a container? It is. Probably margin top that 12, make it look better. Make this a 4XL. Make this a font bold. Cool. And so if you follow a bunch of people, this would show up in a grid of 5. And the idea is now you can actually go and I should be able to click this. So we should probably go back, and this whole thing honestly should just be a link. Just wrap this whole thing in a link. And then we want to be able to go to the profile of the peer.id. So when you click on this, you can go and view the profiles. Let's go and add that key there so it doesn't complain. Auto import that from next link. And then let's go and click on this, and now we can go and unfollow them. And now they're no longer going to show up in our peers. We could probably add like a placeholder state or something, but honestly, I think this is a good start. I just needed a reason to like continue to work on this project, and making a video to make some content was a good excuse. So there you have it. I added something cool to this. I'm going to keep on working on this side project as well, because I do think I can benefit from this. And there's other content creators that I actually talk to in Discord who we try to like review each other's thumbnails and give each other feedback. So I'd like to actually get this to a nice place where it could benefit the people in my community that are trying to create and get feedback on their thumbnails. But yeah, I'm going to commit this. Again, the code will be in the description below if you want to see how I'm kind of building upon this. It is using Convex and Clerk. If you don't know what Convex is, I've used it on a bunch of different videos in the past on my channel. It's just a real-time database. It's a backend as a service that allows you to kind of quickly build out your applications. At least I think it's really cool. And I've been just going all in on Convex, honestly. Let's just go ahead and commit this real quick. And I'll say ability to follow people. Go ahead and commit this. If you enjoyed this type of content, this is just like a little chill live coding session where I'm just going to add some features into an application and just kind of talk you through my thought process. Let me know, leave a thumbs up, comment, and I'll keep doing stuff like this. Otherwise, I just honestly could not think of any content to create. I just can't think of anything new to teach. I feel like I've taught everything I can about Next.js, about web development. At this point, I just want to build stuff. So hope you guys enjoy. Have a good day and happy coding.